The lore in any Dark Souls game is difficult to decipher. It's often buried in item descriptions and wrapped in riddles delivered by the series' handful of NPCs, resulting in lore that's mostly based on speculation and open to interpretation. Now that Dark Souls 3 is here, let's take a look at what we think is going on with the newest entry in the Dark Souls mythos. Ash seeketh Ember. This is what we're told during the opening scene, but it isn't exactly conclusive. We know the flame has faded, but why? Typically, a hero will rise up and link the flame, renewing the Age of Fire, and the undead curse will recede until it's time for the whole thing to start over again. But what if no one links the flame? What if the kiln of the first flame was not visited? With no new soul to infuse its strength, the fire is fading and the darkness is starting to overpower the light. This is a new scenario for us to be in, as the fire is virtually out. We are its last hope before it's extinguished once and for all. Someone must link the flame at the kiln of the first flame. Lord Gwyn did it in Dark Souls, and it's assumed that countless others may have done the same. In Dark Souls 3, we learn of Prince Lothric, the future heir to the throne, who's also destined to become a Lord of Cinder. We know this because of his massive throne in Firelink Shrine. He was supposed to link the flame and save the world, for a time being, by letting the Age of Fire renew. Except he never did. Lothric was born frail and cursed, plus he never really wanted to be a lord anyway.
Mind you, the mantle of Lord interests me none. The fire-linking curse, the legacy of lords, let it all fade into nothing.
To Lothric, the fire linking is a curse, something that should be hated and despised. He is content to let it all fade away and will go so far as to actively try and stop you. But why would he feel this way? Is it existential? Lothric knows the curse can't be stopped, only slowed. We do have one clue though as to what might have put Lothric on this path of disdain towards the linking of the flame. Looks like Lothric has ushered in an age of dark. This isn't necessarily the end of times. If no one links the flame, the world does not halt, the undead curse just continues to grow. We see this all over the world in Dark Souls 3, the biggest example being the undead settlement, an entire town lived in and maintained by the undead. This is when we step in. The world has been in the dark for countless years, the undead curse has nearly consumed everyone, and the first flame is only its last flicker of light. With the first flame untended, the land of Lothric was left to its own devices until one day a bell began to ring. An emergency beacon echoing out from the Firelink Shrine. This is the last call to save the fire, and should this bell ring and the hero fail, the first flame will flicker out of existence once and for all. We aren't sure who rang it, although it's possible that it was the Firekeeper. Its ringing wakes the Unkindled and the Lords of Cinder. The Abyss Watchers, Aldrich, Devourer of Gods, and Yorm the Giant all wake up along with the player. Although it's not made entirely clear why these specific lords are chosen to be awoken, we suspect that it's due to the timeline in which each Lord of Cinder has linked the fire. In order to beat the game, we need 5 Lords of Cinder to sit on their thrones, so it's likely that it would be the 5 most recent, as they would be the strongest. In times past, it was enough to just kill everyone, enter the kiln of the first flame to link the flame and save the world. However, that was also at a time when the fire still had some life left. Now that the fire is nearly out, it may need to be jump-started with the combined might of the Lords of Cinder. We know the bell rings and wakes up the Lords, but why does it wake us up? The opening cutscene tells us, although vaguely.
Nameless, accursed undead, unfit even to be cinder, and so it is that Ash seeketh embers.
So unlike previous Dark Souls games, the player is no longer the undead. Now we're the Unkindled. The Homeward Bone item implies that perhaps you were an undead that was too weak or corrupted to turn to cinder. Typically, the undead will inevitably become cinders, added to the bonfires to maintain the flame. However, our character was seemingly unfit for this process. But as we know, Ash seeketh embers, which is likely referring to the first flame seeking a new ember, but could also be referring to our character. Our character has no internal flame, and it's likely that we are the Ash seeking ember. The ramifications of this are quite deep, and what becomes immediately apparent is that we don't naturally hollow after death. Remember that hollows are the humans who've been undead for so long that they've lost their minds and become crazed. In previous games, when we died, we would become hollow, but due to being the chosen undead, we were able to keep our sanity. In Dark Souls 3, we don't hollow at all unless we complete a very specific series of events. So why is that? How has our character overcome a curse that has plagued humankind for untold centuries? Well, in order to hollow, you must have a soul. You must have something inside you that you can lose. Each time an undead dies, they lose touch with their soul until there's nothing left, and they become crazed. What if, then, we don't have a soul? We know our character is unfit to become cinder, so perhaps this is the reason we don't hollow. The undead curse can't turn us hollow if we have nothing inside us to begin with. Don't forget, these are just some of the theories we put together after our extensive research. Do you have theories on this lore? Let us know, and make sure to stay tuned for more explanations as we dive deeper into Lothric, and of course, for all things Dark Souls, keep it right here on IGN.